I would figure out or be sure that you like children.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Today I'm here with Dr. Charles Barrett. I had the honor of taking one of his classes over the summer. So he is a nationally certified school psychologist in Loudoun County Public Schools. He's been practicing for over 10 years. He's also the Virginia delegate for the National Association for School Psychologists, and he was named School Psychologist of the Year in 2016. He's also a writer, a musician, and a teacher. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Tiffany. It's great
what
to be
an honor.
Here. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So I get a lot of questions about the field in general. I think a lot of people still don't really know what school psychology is and what school psychologists do.
Sure.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
That's a great question, but for me, there is no typical day. I call myself structurally unstructured. So that means I can do a variety of things every day or different things every single day. So I would say that my goal is to always have direct contact with the student, with the child. So that could be testing, could be observation, just talking to a kid in the hallway, cafeteria, just having some kind of direct contact with students. But it could be meetings with parents, consultation, we call it child study in Loudoun County Public Schools. It's got our problem-solving team to discuss academic concerns, social, emotional, behavioral concerns. Could be eligibility meetings after we've tested students. Do they qualify for any disability category to receive specialized support? Could be parent feedback from my assessment results, talking to teachers about intervention ideas, talking to administrators, interns, just a variety of things. No day is boring. Love what I do every day. A lot of flexibility and autonomy in how my day goes. So I like that part about the job. But I would say it's hard to say what's typical. Hopefully what's typical for me is that I've seen a child directly. Not always just because of how things are, but I tell folks all the time that I came to this field to not work with adults every day, but to really talk to children and have direct contact with students. So no typical day, but all of those things can be a part of every day. I serve multiple schools. I could be at one school all day. I could hit all of my schools in a single day. So it just depends on where the work is for that time.
Yeah, it sounds like there's so many things that you do.
It's fun. It's never stagnant. So for example, I may start at school A at 8 o'clock and maybe be outside with buses and parents and students, and then have a few meetings here, observe a child, test a student here, go to school B, have more meetings or test a student there, and end at school C again for dismissal.
I don't know how you, I guess, manage to go to all those places and check everything off your list.
Yeah,
but I guess that's a skill that you would have to kind of build as you're working.
So I think as a school psychologist, depending on where you work, I think being able to multitask is really important. Having multiple meetings, children to assess, people to talk to and consult with. My phone is pretty helpful, so I calendars, but we all have our own system of how we keep ourselves organized. I think just having a presence in your buildings helps. From
what I've learned this past year as a student, it seems like the field is constantly changing, whether it's due to new research or new theories that come up. How has the field changed since you first started?
Sure. So I got my first job in Loudoun in 2008. So I'm just finishing year 11. I'm a school psychologist. I would say two areas have changed the most in the field in general. The first one I would say is there's much more attention on mental health functioning of students. So a lot more counseling focus, working with interns and early career psychologists, a a lot of their programs has focused a lot more on the counseling aspect. So to serve students in school for anxiety, depression, other kinds of mental health difficulties. That was not a large part of my training years ago, but the field in general, it wasn't a major focus at that time. And I would say just the overall MTSS lens of RTI and PBIS for academics and for behavior, I think that's certainly a major change. I was exposed to it in my graduate training, but I think again the field is embracing that methodology a lot more now than it was even 10 years ago. So probably the counseling and just the overall problem solving of MTSS, RTI, PBIS is certainly, and maybe going to more of a prevention lens or framework for everything. I think that's becoming a lot more common in the field as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's the right direction.
Right.
There's no silver bullet that fixes everything with one approach, but I do think all those things can work together as we try to help students.
Great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So what initially drew you to the field?
Yeah, great question. So I went to college, went to St. John's in New York, school in Queens, New York, as a speech pathology and English major. I was in speech services for 6 years, had a really bad stutter, and loved my speech therapist. Her name was Valerie Schwinger. I had her from 1st to 4th grade in elementary school, back in Freeport, Long Island, where I'm from in New York. So I said, well, maybe I'll be a teacher or a speech pathologist. I love English, so I like to write. So I wanted to teach high school English or be a speech pathologist, and then maybe become a principal, administrator. Got a scholarship before my first semester at St. John's to do research, and ended up working with a wonderful school psychologist named Raymond DiGiuseppe at St. John's. So I dropped my speech major to get this scholarship, and it was a full ride and a stipend as an undergrad.
Amazing.
So kind of dropped the speech, kept the English, and became a psych major. Always had a kind of a minor interest in psychology too, and of the options for this scholarship, psychology was the most intriguing for me. So I did that, worked with him. He was studying aggression in adolescents at the time. Really fascinating work. And at the end of my undergraduate career, I was torn about going into education. Do I still want to be a teacher, or do I want to kind of pursue child psychology? I had worked at a camp summer of my freshman year in college, and changed my life. I knew at that point that I definitely had to work with kids. I was kind of sure before, but it was definitely solidified at that point that working with children was my purpose. So spoke to Dr. DiGiuseppe about it, and in 5 minutes he really changed my life. He asked me about what I wanted to do. I said, so I like kids, I like psychology, I like education, and he asked me if I knew about school psychology, and I had never heard of it.
That's perfect.
End of it was great. And he said, well, I think you'll like it. It's a fairly new field. He was also a clinical child psychologist, kind of a combined training. Right. And he said, I think you'll like it. And I trusted him. I liked him a lot, great mentor. And because he said it was a cool thing to try, I did. So I said, well, where I go to school, like how do I do this? He said, well, Lehigh has a great program. Start there. If you get in, go there. St. John's had a great program as well. He said, you should go away and do something different, kind of get trained somewhere else. So I did that, and that one conversation, he literally changed my life. I had never heard about school psychology, but it was kind of this marriage of psychology and education that I was kind of looking for. And as they say, the rest is history. Went to Lehigh, didn't know anything about IDEA and FBA, all these acronyms. It was wild, that first semester. I thought about leaving, Do I want to do this? Do I still want to pursue education administration? But I'm glad I stayed. It really is a perfect fit for who I am as a person. Raymond D. Giuseppe, he's professor of school psychology at St. John's. Okay. We talk on occasion on Facebook, and great guy, just really knowledgeable about a lot of things. I think his main work is around aggression, adolescence, but just a sharp guy, really cool. Yeah.
Great. What advice, if you have any,
sure.
Would you give your younger self when you first started practicing? Are there things that you would do differently?
I want to say yes, but I don't want to sound like I've always known it, because I didn't. For anyone, but especially entering the field, there's a couple things that I've learned that are really important. I think we have to serve people. The job is service. So I think finding a way to plug in to your community, your school community, the families, the staff, the students, of course, and really, what can I contribute that the school needs? That is a huge benefit to you secondarily, but to people first. But it helps your practice in ways that you may not realize that year. So for example, finding a way to connect to a need that the school may have, and if you can fill that or help them fill that, that gives you credibility with the people that you're serving. And it helps you understand the school, the students, the dynamics. Really important. So the idea of coming in to be, the expert in assessment or behavior or intervention, that's a part of it, and people certainly need the expertise. But I think before that, they want to trust you as a person, that you understand who these people are that you're serving with and working for. So I think that's huge. I think with that, I think listening more than you speak is really big, especially being a young psychologist or an early career psychologist. Just listening to teachers, they have a lot of perspective that we may not get having not taught or managed an entire classroom of behaviors and students with different needs. So I've learned a lot from just being around teachers about instruction, behavior management, just from their time in the field. What could I say? I would say, listening a lot. And before you offer your suggestion, which may be great, it may be the answer, I think we always have to validate where people are coming from, especially for parents or for teachers who are really struggling with trying to meet students' needs.
Right.
I think before we offer, you should do this or you should try this, I think validating that what they're seeing and what they're concerned about is legitimate, it's real to them, and then trying to help them to move forward. It's almost like an RTI or any kind of intervention. We meet people where they are and then help them to move beyond that or to move forward. So serving people, listening a lot more than you speak, and I would say validating people's perspectives before kind of offering your own ideas. Those are huge things that I think I see early career people making some mistakes that they may not be aware of. It's not criticism, it's just not knowing that some of those soft skills may be more important than the technical skills of testing and counseling. I think people assume you know what you're doing. You have a job, went to school, you can do those technical things, but can people work with you is really going to lead to your effectiveness as a psychologist.
Those might be hard skills for some people to learn.
I think so. I think they're never taught in programs explicitly. So I think we end up learning on the fly, kind of learning as we go. So I think sometimes the job of mentors or supervisors, directors, is to kind of help people comprehensively, not just in the technical aspects, but more in the people, interpersonal collaboration that's so important to the job of a school psychologist.
Yeah, making those connections and
it's
relating
important.
to people first
it's
before.
Really important. goes a long way. I think of people that I've met just on bus duty, seeing kids outside in my first year that I still talk to. Their kids have long, left the school, some have graduated, but we still keep in touch because there's genuine relationship just from knowing. And I think it also comes from thinking about your community and how the term psychologist could also be intimidating.
Right.
So I think for some people, they assume he or she will tell me that my kid is crazy or that I'm doing something wrong with my parenting. So I've tried to also break down kind of the barrier of what people perceive as the psychologist as just the guy outside who says hi to your kid in the morning or shakes your hand at the end of the day. So I think it's those things that may be more salient for certain populations or certain school communities, but nonetheless effective for everybody. Serving people, being approachable, being visible. I think again, when you have multiple schools, which a lot of psychs do, I think you have to be intentional about being present in your buildings. So I just always like the organic nature of what the school feels like. So I can write anywhere, write in the classroom, write in the conference room, I can write in the hallway, but just seeing people and being available to them goes a long way as well. So I think a lot of those kind of informal things that no one taught me per se, but just I felt were necessary to my job have been really beneficial.
So would you always recommend bus duty for new psychologists?
If you can, yes. If you can't do bus duty, you can definitely find a day or two to sit at a table with some kids and talk. Those things, I think, give you a lot of perspective on what's going on. Yeah, but I like bus duties. So it's interesting. As time goes on, I've gotten busier with other things. I don't do it as much or as much as I would like to, but I really try to end my day at a school or begin my day at a school. That's my goal. It doesn't always work out that way, but if I can, that does kind of set the day off or end the day right.
I think that's an awesome practical tip.
It's really cool. It's raining sometimes and it's cold, but if other staff can do it, then so can we as school psychologists. I think the idea that, I don't do that, I'm the psychologist, which no one says directly, but I think it's implied that we're beyond that. It's not helpful. So yeah, bus duty for me was a very just natural thing I just started doing with an AP when I started my job, and it just became a part of my practice, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, not every school, because again, you have to figure out, am I needed in that capacity? So for every place that I served, it wasn't always practical, but whenever it was, that was my role. I enjoy it.
I think I would love to do that. When I first started, you get to know the students, you get to know the administration, the teachers when they bring the students out.
All of that, names. For me, it's important to call people by their name, and also say their names how they say it, not just some generic way. Just call me whatever, because it's easier for me. But I learned that from seeing kids come in the morning and their parents say their names. So it's just things like that are really practical and helpful.
If you had any advice for prospective or current graduate students, what would that be?
I would figure out or be sure that you like children. It sounds simple, but I've met or encountered psychologists, teachers that I'm not sure they like children. And you can't be an effective school psychologist and not enjoy children. That I would say is the first thing. Second, I would figure out, why do you want to be a school psychologist? Like, what is it about the field that you want to contribute beyond the job? So beyond testing, beyond counseling, beyond prevention, consulting, that's all important. but larger than school psychology, what's your personal purpose in working and serving children and families? Those two things, I think, address a lot. And things change, people grow and kind of develop more interests or different interests. But I think central to being a psychologist is I enjoy working with children, and there's a purpose beyond the discipline, beyond the field, that really draws me to this. I think liking children has to be the foundation for why you want to enter the field. But after I like kids, what is it that keeps me here? In grad school, even in my career, when I'm frustrated, when I'm tired, spring is busy for almost every school psychologist. Testing, and there's a lot going on, end of the year demands. But I think your why and knowing why you're here helps you understand what it is that you should be doing for children. So I think those are places to start. It could be helpful, For me, why is always larger or greater than what we do. So my overall purpose informs what I want to do each day. So for me, it's about hope and wholeness. I want people to have hope. I want kids to be whole, families, teachers, and I accomplish that by being a school psychologist or by writing or by teaching. So it all kind of comes back to a larger purpose that really informs what I do or how I accomplish that. And everyone, I think, should have a why, a concrete, I am about this.
For any job, for any field.
Any job, any field. I'm partial, I think, especially for children, because kids have a way of knowing if you like them or not. Without you saying anything.
Absolutely.
They pick up on just this nonverbal communication. And it's strong, and it really does alter their perspective on themselves, on their education. I have teachers that I still can call their names from pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, third grade. They were great people and great teachers that I knew enjoyed teaching. They enjoyed children. And that has an impact. So I think having a really clear understanding of this is who I am, this is what I'm about, because I know what my purpose is going to be just invaluable as a school psychologist.
Yeah, I think those are really important points, especially if you're going to be working in a school.
Correct. I mean, for me, there's nothing like it. We do a lot of things. There's private practice, there's consulting, there's clinic work, hospital work, but I found my home in a real public school, and I love it. Every day is fun.
Sounds great.
It's great.
I'm very excited to get started too.
It's good. There's nothing like waking up every morning, and we call it a job, but I have a hard time saying that because what I do rarely feels like work. It's that perfect for me. It sounds really corny and cheesy, but I mean it. It's like every day I get to talk to kids and just do what I enjoy doing, and it's just great. So for those who are not in those kinds of positions, I understand that it's sometimes just life circumstances, and I'm not critical of that, but I'm really grateful to have the job that I have. Although it's a job, I guess, but just to do what I do every day, without calling it a job, because it's just that fulfilling. It's good stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it.
So thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to learn more, he has an amazing book. I'll leave it down in the description box below if you want to check it out, learn more about him, and support him. It's called It's Always About the Children.
Yes, every single day, always about the children.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tiffany. Great job. Great meeting you in class, and I hope to see you in the future in the field.
Yeah, hopefully.
I will.
If you guys will take me.
Absolutely. It's going to be great.
All right, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye, folks.